Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another commentary done by Diggity. In the upper right corner, we have none other than Dinosaur Toss Stork, one of the 6 dragons, starting as the red Protoss. Upper left-hand corner, we have Rush, starting as the teal Terran. This is going to be on Polypoid, and I have to confess, I am unabashedly a huge Stork fan. Followed him and Nada in the early days, and that was one of the reasons. I feel like Stork is the guy who made me a Samsung Con fan. Kind of to reveal my biases in the bygone era, but he is fantastic and an extremely strong player against Terran. In the 6 Dragons era, had an 85% win rate, and I think his win rate versus Terran these days is still somewhere in the 70% range as far as a career history. One of my favorite esports moments of all time was when he was finally able to brush off the King of Silver, sort of, or the Prince of Silver sort of accusations and score the gold. In fact, I remember watching him kind of being stunned in the fact that he was going to be able to take the gold home, and I'm like, no, don't be stunned, finish the game, finish the game. Rush, on the other hand, has had a lot of solid ASL appearances. I think he's one of those guys, Light obviously the best Terran at the moment, but one of those guys that maybe in the next year or two could potentially overtake him, depending on a lot of factors. I think practice style will be one of it, but he has a lot of potential, and he's a really fun play style. I think even though Rush has a weaker statistical run versus Protoss, he has also been facing players the caliber of Snow, Mini, Rain, which I think artificially drops that percentage a bit, especially with his ASL appearances. We haven't seen Stork make his way to the ASL. By the way, it looks like we are seeing a 12 Nexus right off the bat. And unfortunately for Stork, it looks like Rush is going to have an initial SCV scout. So I was going to say, despite everything, I still might favor Rush just because of a higher level of activity, ASL appearances, things along those lines. But this certainly is going to give him a huge advantage right off the bat, being able to scout the 12 Nexus this early. And that's before he was making any adjustments with SCV on gas. So I believe peeking in might not... Well, no, looks like that... Well, we'll see. So I'm wondering if Stork saw that SCV peek in and spot the 12 Nexus or not. Let's see if this probe goes immediately to the upper left. Looks like no, it's going to the middle of the map. The SCV playing... I think it must have been spotted, because right now it's playing ninja tactics and trying to hide along that edge. Stork trying to hunt it down and find it. In the meantime, an initial Marine is being produced. It looks like there is going to be an initial factory being dropped, but there have been some SCV pulled off gas. A second probe being sent out to find, I think, to find that SCV. And now Stork attacking that initial SCV has dropped cybernetics core with a gateway, second gateway as well, to provide some defense. Checking that bottom right-hand corner, thus far has no information on his opponent and is not going to get any if he tries to send that probe to the upper left-hand corner here. So I don't know if that was just, I assume he saw that SCV peek in, peek out. A little bit shocked that he didn't just try. So one probe checking bottom right, I think he was saying, okay, if it got here that early, it's got to be bottom right. But now Marines are going to be in the way, and he's going to get 0 scouting information. Was expecting more of an attack force in this, but looks like it's going to come in a bit piecemeal. 5 Marines thus far in production. The SCV still holding. The Marine's going to pull back now. The probe making its way to go ahead and check upper left. An initial Vulture is being produced. And the SCV not dropping a barracks yet. So initial Zealot out. Looks like 2 additional Dragoons being produced. But there's going to be a lot of Marines. So initial 3 Marines. And now a huge SCV pull as well. Stork sees it. The Zealot is able to kill the initial SCV that was building the bunker. But there's going to be plenty more where that came from. And 3 Marines with decent micro can chew through a Zealot rather rapidly. Looks like that Zealot going to hold up short. Wait for Dragoon assistance. The rest of the SCVs and additional Marines now making their way towards the natural expansion. So thus far we've got a 5 count. A Vulture joining, and it looks like there is a 6 Marine trailing. And this is going to be able to peel through that Nexus extremely rapidly. I don't know, even with sufficient micromanagement, that Stork is going to be able to stop this. SCV's boxing out that Dragoon to the right. That Vulture is going to be key, because that Vulture can shoot through that Zealot rather rapidly, and that's going to allow the Marines to survive. And Marines can do immense amounts of damage to those Dragoons rapidly. So the Dragoon's just backing out now. The bunker has completed, and it looks like Stork is just going to sack this natural expansion. 2 Vultures now in the natural expansion, and on top of this, more Marines joining. So we got 6 total Marines, 4 of which in bunkers. The Vultures trading out as they're taking initial damage, trying to bully those Dragoons back, maybe get some kills as well. Single probe being produced, dropping a pylon in that right corner. An SCV going to reapproach and build So a repair, the Nexus is down, and a disastrous start for Stork here. 4 Dragoons in that corner, but mines are not that far away from being researched. I don't know that he's going to have an overwhelming attack force here, depending on how Rush wants to play this, to prevent the Vultures from also mining up the natural expansion, making any sort of movement pressure or anything, and even retaking the natural expansion somewhat difficult. So an SCV remains to go ahead and repair that bunker and be punishing. The Vultures remaining to potentially get mines down, and on top of this, Rush going to go ahead and grab that command center. Looks like one through some latent micro from the Dragoons. I don't know that was microed all that directly. Mines are being planted. The bunker being evacuated. 1 Marine remaining. No, well, a little bit of SCV repair at the end there. Excuse me. And the Marine within being left as a sacrifice. Stork moving out. He needs to babysit that probe, because these Vultures could very easily do this. Sneak in, pick it off, and now that's even more delayed time. Loses a Dragoon as well. A bit of splash damage on that Zealot. And now, Rush in a very comfortable position. A bunch of Marines on the front. An engineering bay to blockade alongside that barracks, and that natural expansion to come online way ahead of Stork's natural. Looks like, I think a Zealot. Yeah, both Zealots moving forward to go ahead and clear the rest of those mines. But with this front door seal and 2 siege tanks out on the front and siege tech not that far away, I don't know that Stork is really going to be able to follow this up with any form of pressure. So really in a pickle. Looks like he went for observatory instead. But he is hanging out with a probe at the 3 o'clock location. Potentially to immediately drop, yeah, just saved, cut everything, saved, and is going to drop another Nexus while pressuring the front. So right now is not in a position to really do anything to Rush's economy, but this is going to put Stork in a situation where potentially he could come back, because he's way behind in the initial game. Ooh, that Zealot going to lose its life there, yeah, to that siege tank up on the high ground. So definitely taking a lot of damage in the initial, but when you have 3 Nexus up, you can triple produce those probes and recover things rather rapidly, especially if you're cutting everything else in your economy in between. Second factory drop from Rush, but there's going to be it's an uphill battle. There's a lot of territory to try to cover. Armory already plopping down for Rush. Make his way towards Weapons 1. Also a missile turret on the front to respect both Dark Templar as a follow-up. Going to push that observer to the south. This also is a big indicator to Rush that, hey, that was a observer opener, and actually killing that SCV is really key. And also maintaining control of this front, preventing Vultures from sneaking by. It looks like Vulture speed is being upgraded, and it looks like an additional Vulture being produced. But if Stork can actually blockade and deny Rush information and hide the fact that he went for such an early third, it'll be very much to his advantage. He's already transferring probes now to that 3 o'clock location, currently down 6 workers, behind in the overall supply count. But Rush actually looks like he's going to make movements potentially to go for a third base here, rather than slow play it towards level 2, which is just allowing Stork an opportunity to get back in the matchup, which I feel like is a critical mistake. He's sticking at the 2 factory count rather than tacking up to 4 to kind of do a dual pressure, an optional secure the third or apply pressure, and instead is just, yeah, staying at a lower factory count, which suggests maybe he's going to go for maybe move more towards that level 2 up and level 1 armor timing attack. Some Vultures sneaking through. Excuse me, they're not going to be in time to get past this pylon wall, unfortunately. But Rush still in a very good position. At the moment, supply counts, he's still up 8 workers. And even on supply, where Protoss typically would want to be pulling ahead in supply right at this stage. Third factory being dropped, though. Vultures not finding anything. It looks like the Dragoons are making their way south, and Observer also doing a very diligent job of making sure mines aren't along the way, so Stork preserving troops as best he can, tacking on additional gateways, and a Citadel of Idun. Observer's going to be able to sneak in, and I think he's going to love what he sees here. Just, yeah, the 3 factories and only the single machine shop. Mines being cleared to the south. The 2 Vultures going to remain in the middle of the map. A single Observer checking out that 12 o'clock location, additional Observer at forward position, and I'm not sure whether that, I wish I could see where that comsat got trapped, but I assume it was checking tech here to see just a slew of gateways. Forge being dropped as well. We'll see if there's movement as +1 weapons makes its way towards finishing. Now a 4th and 5th factory are being added on. Stork, though, has surged ahead has actually taken the lead in the overall worker count and actually has decent supply as a follow-up, the front being scanned, and just now grabbing his second gas, but we'll see if he has... So Zealot leg speed upgrading. I think that's going to be well behind when +1 weapons finishes, but I don't think Rush is making maneuvers. Yeah, he's dropping that command center instead. So making maneuvers to grab a third rather than going for any sort of timing across the +1 weapons. And right now, Stork, with that very quick third base take and the lack of return pressure from Rush, he is just going to actually surge ahead in supply. So despite the disastrous opener, he's in a great spot here in the mid game, and if he can harass and delay this third, be even better. However, there are a lot of siege tanks, those Marines from the early game, and Vultures there. Dragoons to the south, Dragoons to the east. There is a shuttle with those Zealots to maybe go for bombs. Those Marines well positioned to go ahead and push that back. Looks like Stork is going to go ahead and test the front, loses a Dragoon for his effort. Going to back out otherwise. Yeah, that would be a disastrous attack if he went for it. He's going to go ahead and grab his fort, though, behind this. And I feel like he's got to feel comfortable doing so, especially because he can box. So despite not being in a position to really attack the third or harass the third, he's in a position to go ahead and prevent Vultures from peeking out and harassing any of his holdings out on the map. Observer going to die there on the forward field, but he had a really good idea of kind of what's out there. And that third going to be grabbed as that fourth base is not that far behind. And that's going to allow Stork to keep that lead. Templar Tech has been spotted. Vultures are going to go ahead and peek out to the south. Dragoon grouping to go ahead and engage it in the middle, along with some Zealots in that shuttle. And it looks like they're going to go ahead and patrol. You can see Stork making a beeline to that right-hand corner to go ahead and cut that off. But right now, Stork well ahead in the worker count. Exactly where he wants to be as far as supply. We do have the 5 factories up and additional factories being dropped down from Rush. And he's making his way towards the level 2 weapons and trying to find that second armory where it's out. I got to trust that that armory is somewhere out here. There it is. To get that level 2 weapons, level 1 armor, and maybe go for that timing attack and that spike. However, average toss, I'd say, yeah, that would work. But against Stork, I don't know. Looks like Stork is going to try to sneak this inside 3 o'clock. The Zealots right there to go ahead and engage alongside the Dragoons. I think the Vultures did, in fact, spot it. Maybe going to move to the north. But in the meantime, High Templar taking the field within the shuttle. And that is... I feel like there's only a single player that has better storms than Stork, and that is Jangby. And Stork's ability to carve out, and I really mean carve out, opponents with extremely precision placed side storms is a beauty to watch. And I have a feeling that is what we're going to see in not too long from now. Probe able to sneak by a Vulture to go ahead and move to the bottom right, potentially to grab that base in the near future. Level 2 weapons about to kick online, so Rush making movements, but Stork with an army there to meet it, he's actually not that far off 200 supply, and these are huge clumpings of tanks. So with the Zealots charging forward, absorbing some initial fire, allowing that shuttle to go ahead and sneak in, this is going to be beautiful for Psystorm everywhere along that bunching. Enough so that the Zealots are able to careen in, and you cannot ask for a more picture-perfect engagement from a player than that. Obliterates Rush's army, resets the mech count, and opens up a 50 supply gap at the end of it. Now Rush will be lucky, so that command center going to be exposed that's being built on the low ground. Potentially needs to be canceled, and Rush will be lucky to be able to defend his third. Losing some siege tanks up to the north. Let's see if he can reinforce and defend that. Looks like the command center is going to be delayed a bit. An Archon in between some tanks and Vultures going ahead and reinforcing. It looks like some mines planted to the south. Going to go ahead and clean out the Zealots that were there. Reinforcements not being re-engaged, so Stork going to allow, and even the Precision Psystorm to miss the Observer right there. Stork going to need to re-macro here momentarily after expending a lot of those troops, but Really a fantastic engagement, really pressuring Rush. Gonna delay that 4th base, and he's already starting to grab some territory here in the bottom right. Some vultures sneaking through. It looks like they are going to be able to... So nice engagement here from Rush. Going to be able to pick off some probes while they're making their way across. There are cannons already online, but he can wipe these expansions out pretty rapidly. So yeah, getting everything there. Let's see if he scoots to the bottom right. Looks like the cannons are already going to be established. Stork has enough resources to drop the Nexus as well. So the vulture's going to be able to wander in, but they're not going to do much aside from kill that probe. And they should be cleaned up. Looks like Zealots are going to march in to go ahead and try to clean that up. See if there's actually delay in some Dragoons and whatnot. Some more vultures moving their way out. So Rush just trying to get some value, sneak in, pick off some probes where he can, maybe even get some High Templar if he gets lucky. But that 12 o'clock base still hasn't been grabbed. And it looks like instead of dealing with that, he's going to move that command center and motion it out to the 9 o'clock base. So rather than, rather than expanding into Stork, he's going to try to expand away from Stork. Stork with a 40 supply lead, starting to bully these vultures back. Before Rush is able to establish battle lines, it looks like he is setting up a good gap of siege tanks and turrets, though, before those Dragoons or any reinforcements are able to close that. So I think he is going to have... Yeah, he's going to be able to go ahead and establish that 9 o'clock base, but in the meantime, Stork has already grabbed that bottom right. He can go ahead and grab the natural expansion there without too much trouble. Rush's main is mined out, so he's going to be at 3 base versus 4 base toss. And Stork, very shortly, is going to hit 200 supply and be up 50, 60 supply over Rush. So he's going to have an opportunity to go ahead and push through and throw continuous waves of troops. More Psi Storms dropping. The Vultures trying to back out of it. More High Templar fielding. Not going to land on the... Yeah, the siege tanks are well spread, but the Zealots able to get right on top of what is left. So the siege tank line's thin, and rather than continuing to pile drive across that 9 o'clock, the Zealots moving to the north. Zealots mine dragging across that top tank. And now there's a breach between the 9 o'clock base and this mineral only on the interior. Still a few troops left where they can even threaten that, and a second wave of reinforcements moving out. Some mines in between for the direct route, but if they if they just take a different path, they can go ahead and avoid all that. That is what Stork's doing diligently, and might even be able to swing in and wipe out this base. Or if he wants to, he can just march these Zealots straight up to the 9 o'clock location, wipe out the siege tanks here to the south, but point being, he's got a complete breach and is still way ahead in the supply count. And Rush gonna GG right there. I'm assuming he dropped the comsat, saw all the gateways in production. At the end of this, going ahead and check the upgrade count as well. Level 2 weapons, level 1 armor, level 3 weapons, level 2 armor. But love to see Stork pull a win, especially with that beautiful engagement here across this corridor. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for listening.